Black solo mom shelters 15 frostbitten riders in a blizzard. Dawn brings 1,500 outlaw angels to her gate. A sudden blizzard struck on a frozen winter night. At a remote ranch house, Cynthia was battling a powerless generator, a failing wood stove, and her 5-year-old daughter shivering beneath threadbare quilts. Then came the roar outside. 15 icy riders appeared, their frost-crusted bikes lined up at her gate. They pleaded for refuge from the deadly storm. Terrified yet guided by compassion, she ushered them in. They shared stories over steaming coffee and venison stew. She never imagined that by dawn, her mercy would draw 1,500 roaring outlaw angels to her threshold, reshaping her world and a vast frontier forever. Before diving deeper, tell us where you're tuning in from. And hit subscribe. Tomorrow brings an even wilder tale. The clock on the scarred pine mantel ticked past 2:13 a.m. when Cynthia Morgan finally slumped into a creaking chair. Her roughened fingers shook as she tallied the sparse coins on the oilcloth-covered table. $4.87. That was the fragile barrier between her daughter Lily and hunger by daylight. Cynthia rubbed her weary eyes, the burden of solitude sinking into her marrow. At 35, she carried the lines of someone twice her age. Her rich brown skin, once vibrant, now bore the ashen fatigue of endless labor to keep the ranch afloat. The modest home groaned against the gale, a stark echo of her isolation. Lily dozed fitfully in the adjoining room, nestled in a nest of faded quilts and wool socks. The stove had sputtered out hours earlier, and Cynthia could not summon a repairman, so she kept her close where embers might linger. The child's gentle breaths rose unaware that her mother teetered on the edge of despair amid mounting debts and shattered hopes. The ranch perched alone on the windswept plains of Montana, cut off from the nearest town by miles of barren fields no one coveted. It felt as though the land itself had sidelined her, much like society. The ranchers in the valley below seldom nodded her way. When they did, it was with wary stares or hushed talks that halted as she passed. "Why'd you go, Elijah?" she murmured to the shadows, her words lost in the stove's faint crackle. Her husband had vanished 2 years back, chasing freedom. He had found it in a saloon girl's arms in Wyoming, forsaking alimony that might have fed his child and secured their home. The divorce decree lay folded in a drawer, its final stamp a wound that refused to heal. Cynthia's phone vibrated on the table, jolting her. A message from the feed store owner lit the screen. "No more credit. Pay up or we're done." The blow landed hard. She reread it, praying for mercy that would not come. This was the 4th setback in months. The general store had cut her shifts when Lily fell ill and she brought her along. The diner dismissed her after nodding off post-double shifts. "How do I provide without childcare, sweet girl?" she asked her sleeping daughter. Preschool cost $150 weekly, she lacked. Kin were ghosts since her father's death 5 years prior, claiming the last soul who grasped her fight. His gruff voice resurfaced in her thoughts, warm beneath the bark. "Cynthia, darlin', hold on to my venison stew recipe. That mix of wild herbs from the hills, it's been ours for generations. When hardship bites, it'll pull you through." She had chuckled then, blind to how a pot of meat and roots could redeem her. But now, with $4.87 and eviction looming, his words gleamed like a beacon. She rose to the warped cupboard, retrieving his tin recipe box. Faded cards in his bold script detailed the stew, with notes on cornbread and spiced apples that stirred her senses. He had managed a chuck wagon for trail drives in his youth, before the big outfits faded and folks turned to supermarkets. Maybe it's worth a shot, she thought, though fear whispered failure. Dawn broke gray. Cynthia spent her coins on venison scraps and staples. She arranged hay bales as seats in the great room beside the cookstove, crafting a rustic eatery. A chalkboard sign leaned against the window. Morgan's Hearth, frontier fare from the heart. Lily perched on a stool, giggling as savory aromas bloomed. The secret lay in the herb blend her father swore by, a smoky, earthy fusion that tenderized tough cuts and warmed the soul. Hours dragged. She eyed passers-by on the distant road. Some paused at the sign, but spotting her through the pane, they hurried on, faces tightening. Old Man Harlan from the adjacent spread halted fully. Cynthia's pulse raced. She flung open the door. "Mornin', Mr. Harlan. Care for some stew? Family recipe straight from the range." His gaze hardened at her sight. The white rancher's lips curled in disdain. "Ain't interested," he grunted, retreating. "Heard your solo, no man in sight. Likely don't know the daddy. I don't eat from that sort." The barb stung, but she held her smile. "It's hearty and hot, sir. Clean as they come." "I said no," Harlan barked. "And you got no business peddlin' out a home. This here's decent land. Keep your troubles off it." He stormed off, leaving Cynthia's chest knotted with shame and fury. She shut the door, sagging against it as rejection cloaked her. Lily glanced up from her stool, trusting eyes wide. "All good, darlin'," she breathed, lifting her close. "We'll sort it. I swear." Yet staring at the vacant tables, sense of untold bounty mocking her, Cynthia doubted if vows alone could conquer a hostile world. Beyond, the Montana winter clawed the panes, and within, the chill matched her spirit. The phone rang, another creditor. She ignored it, voicemails piling like snowdrifts. Tomorrow meant job hunting, if any soul would employ a black single mother hauling her kid. Lily patted her cheek with tiny fingers, sensing sorrow. "Mama," she cooed, her clearest word. "Right here, love," Cynthia replied, throat tight with unshed tears. "Always." As twilight dimmed the windows, Cynthia clutched Lily and pondered how long she could battle a realm bent on breaking her. Her father's stew lingered in the air, a ghost of aspirations slipping away. She cleared the untouched bowls, wiped the tables that no one had sat at, and banked the fire for the night. Sleep came in fits, haunted by the echo of Harlan's words and the weight of what tomorrow might demand. 2 months on, since Harlan's venom, Cynthia's hearth venture drew 6 patrons. 6 bold hearts who savored her father's stew and proclaimed it legendary. They were travelers passing through, or the occasional hand from a distant spread who had heard whispers of the flavor. But 6 could not cover mortgages or fuel the stove, and overdue notices towered daily. November's end loomed with leaden skies heralding doom. Forecasts screamed the century's fiercest blizzard. Cynthia gazed from the window, stirring beans as flakes initiated their assault. She had bartered for provisions, banking on holiday crowds that ghosted. The sign still stood outside, chalk letters fading under the first dusting of snow, but the road remained empty. "Mama cold," Lily murmured from her mat, rubbing palms. Cynthia stoked the stove and swaddled her extra. The house iced quicker than normal, but she blamed the gale. Winds escalated, rattling frames with venom. By dusk, snow veiled all but the gate. Even rare wagons vanished. Silence unnerved, pierced by howls and branch snaps under burden. She tucked Lily in, masking dread as chill infiltrated bones. The great room felt smaller now, the walls pressing in with every gust. Cynthia added the last log to the stove, watching the flames dance lower than she liked. Her stockpile of dried meats and roots would hold for a while if rationed, but the thought of stretching it through an unknown number of storm days twisted her stomach. Lily's small cough echoed in the quiet, a reminder that illness waited for any weakness. Cynthia pulled the quilts tighter around her daughter, then around herself as she settled on the floor nearby. The generator had given up weeks ago, and the repair bill sat unpaid on the table beside the coins that were no longer there. She closed her eyes, willing sleep to come, but the wind kept her awake with its relentless howl. Outside, the snow piled higher, erasing the chalkboard sign, the gate, the road. Inside, the temperature dropped degree by degree. Cynthia rose twice in the night to check the stove, feeding it scraps of kindling she had saved for emergencies. Each time she returned to Lily, the child stirred but did not wake fully. By morning, the windows were opaque with frost, and the air carried a bite that no amount of quilts could blunt. Cynthia stirred a pot of beans over the gas burner, the last of her propane hissing softly. She tasted it, added a pinch of the precious herb blend, and tried to smile for Lily's sake. The girl sat wrapped in layers, watching her mother with wide eyes that held too much understanding for 5 years. "Snow pretty," Lily said, pointing at the window. Cynthia nodded, though the beauty felt like a trap closing around them. The radio crackled with warnings. Stay indoors, roads impassable, temperatures plunging. Cynthia turned it off to save the batteries. She had heard enough. The storm was not a visitor. It was a siege. She rationed the beans into 2 bowls, one for each of them, and they ate in silence broken only by the wind. Afternoon brought no let-up. The snow reached the lower panes, and the light inside turned dim and blue. Cynthia bundled Lily onto her lap, rocking gently, humming the old trail songs her father had taught her. The melody filled the space for a moment, pushing back the cold. But as evening deepened, the stove's heat faded faster than she could replenish it. She eyed the furniture, wondering what she could break down next for fuel. The thought made her stomach sink. This ranch had been in her family for generations, and now she measured its worth in burnable pieces. Night fell early under the storm's shroud. Cynthia lit a single lantern, its glow barely reaching the corners of the room. Lily's cheeks were flushed, but not from warmth. A fever simmered beneath the surface, the kind that started with a cough and ended in doctor bills she could not pay. Cynthia pressed a cool cloth to the child's forehead, whispering promises she was not sure she could keep. The wind screamed louder, as if mocking her efforts. She thought of the 6 patrons who had come and gone, their kind words now distant memories against the reality of empty seats and unpaid bills. Harlan's face flashed in her mind, his sneer a permanent scar. She had opened her home, her kitchen, her heart, and the world had answered with closed doors and colder shoulders. Yet even in the deepening freeze, a small spark refused to die. Her father's voice returned, steady and sure. "Hold on, darlin'. The stew, the herbs, the hearth, they're more than food. They're legacy, their fight." Cynthia looked at Lily, at the lantern's flicker on the tin recipe box, and felt the spark catch. She would not let the storm take everything. Not tonight. She added water to the beans, stretched the meal further, and began to plan. If the blizzard trapped her, she would trap it right back with warmth she created herself. She stirred the pot one more time, the scent rising like a defiant banner. Outside, the first flakes of what would become a historic wall of white continued to fall, oblivious to the woman inside who refused to break. The wind picked up in the dead of night, a low moan that grew into a furious rattle against the ranch house walls. Cynthia jolted awake, her body stiff from the hard floor. Snow had begun to veil the gate outside, turning the familiar iron bars into a ghostly outline. The silence that followed each gust felt heavier than the noise, an eerie hush that pressed down like an unseen hand. Lily stirred in her arms, her small voice cutting through the dark. "Mama, cold." The words were simple, but they pierced Cynthia deeper than any blade. She pulled her daughter closer, wrapping another quilt around them both, and stumbled to the cookstove. The embers were barely alive, a faint red glow that mocked her efforts. She fed it the last of the kindling, coaxing a weak flame to life, but the heat it gave was fleeting, swallowed quickly by the creeping frost. Morning came without sun, only a gray pallor seeping through the iced windows. Cynthia checked the thermostat first thing, her fingers numb as she pressed the buttons. Error codes blinked back at her, unyielding. She grabbed the phone, dialing the repair service with hope she knew was foolish. The recorded voice was calm, almost cheerful. Emergencies queued, minimum 96 hours due to storm conditions. She hung up, the device slipping from her grip onto the table. Lily quaked in her layers, a full-body shiver that turned into a wail when the cold bit too hard. Cynthia scooped her up, rocking gently, but the child's cries echoed her own rising dread. Then, with a sharp pop from outside, the power snapped out entirely. The hum of the refrigerator died, the lights flickered once and vanished, plunging the house into gloom. Cynthia fumbled for matches, lighting the lanterns one by one. Their yellow glow pushed back the shadows but did little against the chill. She corralled Lily to the great room, the heart of the house where the cookstove still held some promise. The gas burner worked, thank God, so she set a pot of water to boil, the steam rising to add a touch of moisture to the air. She cracked the oven door, letting the pilot light's blue flame offer what warmth it could. Her stockpile stared back from the shelves. Dried meats, grains, roots, spices. It was a grace, this hoard she had bartered and scraped together. Rationed carefully, it promised days, maybe a fortnight if the storm dragged on. She portioned out breakfast, a thin porridge thickened with yesterday's beans, and fed Lily by spoonfuls, her own stomach knotting at the meager portions. Day 2 dawned no brighter. They cocooned in fabrics near the stove, a nest of quilts and blankets that grew heavier with each hour. Candles were rationed now, one per evening, melted down to stubs before extinguishing. Lily's cough worsened, a dry hack that started in her chest and rattled out into the cold air. Cynthia cradled her, alarm mounting with each fit. She brewed weak tea from the herbs, hoping the steam would ease the congestion, but the child's eyes grew glassy, her energy fading. Snow had entombed the windows completely, thick layers blocking all view of the outside world. The ranch felt buried alive, isolated in a white coffin. Cynthia's mind raced with internal panic. How long until the food ran low, the fuel gave out, the fever took hold? But she masked it with soothing words, singing softly, telling stories of her father's trail drives to distract them both. We're tough, precious. Like the old chuck wagon cooks. We'll ride this out. The hours blurred into a cycle of stoking, boiling, rationing. Cynthia ventured to the porch once, shovel in hand, but the snow had drifted waist-high already, the wind whipping it into her face like needles. She retreated, door barred against the onslaught. Lily slept fitfully, her cough punctuating the silence. Cynthia dozed in snatches, always half awake, listening for changes in the storm or her daughter's breathing. The great room became their entire universe, the stove its flickering sun. She counted the jars on the shelf, recalculated portions, and prayed the gas held. Outside, the blizzard raged unchecked, branches snapping under the weight, the gate long lost to sight. Inside, time stretched thin, each minute a battle won against the cold. By night 3, exhaustion had settled into Cynthia's bones like the frost itself. The lanterns were low, the candles nearly gone. Lily's cough had deepened, but she managed a weak smile when Cynthia tucked her in closer to the stove. The wind howled without pause, a demonic chorus that tested every seam in the house. Cynthia sat with her back to the wall, Lily's head in her lap, stroking the child's hair. Darkness pressed in, thick and absolute. Then, amid the wails of the storm, a new sound pierced the veil. A rumble, faint at first, like distant thunder rolling over the plains. It grew, vibrating through the floorboards, a mechanical growl that sliced the blizzard like iron. Headlights pierced the white through tiny slits in the frost-covered windows, hazy beams dancing wildly. Bikes in this. Cynthia breathed, gripping Lily tighter. The rumble peaked, shaking the foundations, then ceased abruptly. Silence returned, but it terrified her more than the noise. Boots crunched on the snow outside, heavy and deliberate. Murmurs approached, low and urgent, carried on the wind. Lily stirred, her eyes fluttering open. 3 knocks thundered against the door, solid and insistent. Cynthia's pulse raced, a whirlwind of fear spinning in her chest. No visitor braved storms like this, least of all bikers. Another knock came, urgent but not violent. "Ma'am, aid us. Freezin'." The voice was raspy, desperate, cutting through the wood. Her thoughts whirlwind, danger or something else. Why her remote gate? Lily cried softly, sensing the tension. Cynthia rocked her, peering at the door, debating if opening meant salvation or ruin. The wind screamed outside. A third knock boomed, echoing like a rifle shot. Cynthia's heart slammed against her ribs. Lily whimpered, rigid in her arms. She backed to the far wall, ears straining over the storm. "Please, The voice rasped again, laced with raw need. Ain't harm. Just shelter. Through the frost-laced glass of a side window, shadows danced in the headlights. Figures huddled, bikes iced over. Her mind flashed to outlaw tales, warnings from her childhood about packs of riders who took what they wanted. Reason, Cynthia, she urged herself, soothing Lily with a hush. Creeping low on hands and knees, she spied carefully. 15 figures in iced leathers, helmets scarved with frost, stamping numb feet against the cold. The leader loomed largest, his helmet removed to reveal a craggy face bearded in hoarfrost, eyes piercing yet weary from the fight against the elements. He locked gaze on her window for a moment. She dropped back, breath caught. Hands trembled as she clutched Lily. Instincts screamed to barricade, to protect what little sanctuary they had. Alone, vulnerable, no help for miles. But then she spotted one rider stagger, another propping him up, a dark stain on his leg that looked like blood frozen in place. Distress, not menace. They were suffering just as she and Lily were. Lily coughed harshly, a reminder of the peril inside these walls. Isolation could kill slower but surer than any stranger. Her father's adage rang clear in her memory. Darlin', aid the needy. Looks don't matter. Origins neither. You help 'cause someday you might need it. The Lord tallies, returns manifold. He had lived it, sharing his last jerky with drifters, hosting hungry hands despite the risks. Cynthia eyed Lily's trusting gaze, the child's small hand on her cheek. Safety sometimes demanded risk. A gentler knock followed. Ma'am, one's bad hurt. Bleed in hours. Cold worsens. Beggin', floor's fine. Warmth only. Pain laced the plea, raw fear that mirrored her own. Not predators. Equals in terror. She rose, legs wobbling as she approached the door. Forehead to the wood, she summoned grit. Truly injured. Jack slipped miles back. Searched refuge since. How many? 15, we ride tight. No man left. 15 strangers in her haven with her child. Madness or her father's way. Lily touched her face encouragingly. Scared but brave sometimes means both, Cynthia whispered. Deep breath. She unlatched the door, cracked it open just enough. The leader dwarfed her expectations, patches adorning his leather jacket, beard silver-streaked with ice. But his eyes held gratitude, fatigue, an unexpected softness that eased her grip on the door. Bless you, he rumbled emotionally. Benjamin Franklin. Won't forget. Behind him, the 14 others waited in the swirl of snow, outlaw visages softened by their plea. Enter, she said faintly. Before you freeze. As the first crossed the threshold, snow shedding from his boots, stomping the mat carefully, Cynthia sensed an irrevocable shift. No longer solitary. One by one, the 15 filed in, boots wiped meticulously on the mat, movements cautious to avoid startling her or the child. No chaos erupted. Only disciplined calm filled the space. Benjamin shut the door firmly, bolting it against the storm. Seeing her flinch, he raised his palms. Seal the cold, guard you both. The great room shrank with their burly forms in leathers, filling corners and kitchen alike. Yet a reverence hushed them as they surveyed her humble abode, the lanterns casting long shadows. Helmets came off one by one, unveiling scarred but kind faces weathered by more than just the blizzard. Grateful, a younger one murmured, his voice thick with relief. Lily peeked from the quilts, her curiosity overriding fear. A grizzled rider waved gently. She hid for a second, then re-emerged intrigued. Your girl? He asked softly. Lily, 5. Fine lass. I'm Silas. Got grandkids her age. Tension eased further. Silas seemed grandfatherly. His jacket patched but tidy, smile crinkling warmly across his face. The last rider crossed the threshold, and the door's solid thud behind him sealed the storm outside. Cynthia stood frozen for a heartbeat, the weight of 15 men in her great room pressing against her like the blizzard itself. Yet no one lunged or demanded. Instead, they moved with a quiet order that felt almost military. Each wiped boots again on the mat, careful not to track ice across her worn floorboards. Benjamin scanned the bolts once more, ensuring the latch held firm. "Keeps the wind out and you safe," he said, voice low, meeting her eyes with a nod that asked permission rather than assumed it. She managed a small dip of her head, and the reverence in their postures eased the knot in her chest. This was her home, humble and threadbare, but they treated it like sacred ground. A younger rider, face half hidden by a scarf still frosted at the edges, exhaled a shaky breath. "Ma'am, you saved our hides. Truly grateful." His words carried the raw edge of someone who had stared death down and found it waiting. Lily, bundled in quilts near the stove, peeked out again. Her wide eyes took in the giant figures, curiosity winning over caution. Silas crouched to her level, his knees cracking softly. "Hey there, little miss. You warm enough?" Lily nodded shyly, then pointed at the patch on his jacket, a faded eagle with outstretched wings. "Bird." Silas chuckled, the sound warm and rumbling. "That's right. Flies high and free. Just like you will one day." The gentleness in his tone wrapped around the room, loosening the last threads of tension. Benjamin limped forward a step, his gaze shifting to the settee where the injured rider lay propped against a cushion. "Straight talk, ma'am. Our boy Jax took a bad spill on ice miles back. Gash is deep, bleedin' slowed but not stopped. You got a first aid kit?" Cynthia followed his pointing finger. Jax was pale, younger than the rest, his leg wrapped in a makeshift bandage dark with blood. Pain etched lines around his eyes, but he tried a weak smile. "Some supplies," she said, already moving to the cupboard beneath the sink. Her hands found the kit, a dented metal box her father had stocked years ago. She knelt beside Jax, opening it with practiced calm. The wound was ugly, a long tear through muscle, edges jagged from the fall. "Deep. Needs stitches, a doctor." Benjamin shook his head. "Roads are gone. Tried for hours." Cynthia met his eyes, decision settling like a stone. "Clean it, bandage tight, keep pressure. Best we can do tonight." She worked with steady fingers, antiseptic sharp in the air, gauze layered thick. The riders watched in silence, respect heavy in their stillness. When she tied the final knot, Jax rasped, "Skilled hands." Cynthia gave a small shrug. "Father taught me. He mended more than cattle on those trail drives." The others did not idle. Two headed to the kitchen, opening packs with quiet efficiency. Cans and dried goods appeared on the counter, merging with Cynthia's own sparse shelves. A drawling voice from a tall rider with a braided beard broke the quiet. "Ma'am, you cook. We got rations to spare. Combine 'em, feed everyone proper." Cynthia hesitated, then nodded. "I do. Tried a hearth here once. Small eatery in the great room. Didn't take." Benjamin's brow lifted, interest sparking. "What kind?" "Frontier stew. My father's recipe. Wild herbs from the hills." Silas grinned, rubbing his hands. "Real cookin'. Been months since anything but trail jerky and gas station burritos." The kitchen came alive under their hands. Pots clattered softly, knives chopped vegetables with precision. Cynthia directed, pointing to the herb tin, the cast-iron pot that had seen generations. The riders followed her lead without question, their movements smooth from years of shared campfires. Aromas bloomed, rich and savory, venison melding with onions, carrots, the secret smoky blend her father had sworn by. The great room filled with steam and murmurs, the cold retreating to the corners. Lily ventured out from her quilts, drawn by the smells and the low voices. Silas knelt again, helping her stack empty cans into a tower. "Build me a fort, lass." Lily giggled, adding a soup can to the top. It wobbled, then held. Another rider joined, calloused hands surprisingly gentle as he steadied the structure. "Sharp kid," he said. "Reminds me of my niece back in Idaho." They crowded the table, some on hay bales, others on the floor with plates balanced on knees. Lanterns cast golden pools of light, faces flickering in and out of shadow. Benjamin cleared his throat once everyone had a bowl. Explanations due. We're veterans, most of us. Marines, Army, a couple Air Force. Served in different sands, came home to a world that didn't fit anymore. Found each other on the road, built a brotherhood that makes sense. Silas added, spoon paused midair. Ride together, look out like we did overseas. Patch each other up, share the load. Another rider stressed. No gang. No crime. Just family we chose. Jax, propped with his leg elevated, spoke through a mouthful. Headed to a holiday meet in Boise. Charity run, toys for kids, food drives. Benjamin nodded. Storm ambushed us outside town. Jax hit black ice, went down hard. Cynthia listened, spoon stirring her stew. She had judged the leather, the bikes, the outlaw look. Instead she found warriors seeking purpose, giving back on wheels. Folks see the patches and assume the worst, Benjamin said quietly. But we mend our own, help where we can. The words echoed her own pain. I know that look, she said softly. Black woman, solo mom, struggling spread. They see lazy, see trouble. Ignore that I held this place together alone after he left. Silence fell, the wind a distant murmur now. Benjamin stared into his bowl, then spoke, voice low. Lost my boy. Caleb. 8 years old, curls wild as the wind, bright as sunrise. Cancer took him 2 years back. Fought hard, but it won. The men shifted, the air thick with shared grief. Wife couldn't stay. Blamed me for long. Deployments, no insurance for the treatments. Said I failed him. She left, couldn't face the empty room. Tears pricked Cynthia's eyes. I'm sorry. Benjamin shrugged, pain etched deep. Ride keeps the empty ranch from swallowing me. These men are my kin now. The vulnerability cracked something open in Cynthia. Elijah said he needed space 2 years ago. Found it with a cowgirl in Wyoming. No calls, no support. Erased us like we never existed. Silas asked gently. He see Lily at all? She shook her head. Never. I get judged for choosing wrong, but I loved him. Now I fight for her future alone. Benjamin met her gaze. Life shatters dreams. And people too. The bond warmed like the stew in their bellies. He tilted his head. You opened anyway. Scared, and you had every right to distrust. Cynthia glanced at Lily, now asleep against Silas's side. My father said help the needy, even if they look like foes. Said kindness comes back. Silas smoothed Lily's hair. Smart man. Night settled into a rhythm. Riders arranged themselves along walls and floor, cushions and spare blankets distributed. Their bodies added warmth, a living barrier against the cold. Cynthia moved lighter, the loneliness that had gripped her for years loosening its hold. Lily adored Silas, tugging his beard gently, showing him her tiny treasures, a smooth stone, a feather. Been just us so long, Cynthia confided as she banked the stove for the night. Feels strange to have voices again. One rider nearby smiled. Us now, ma'am. Least for tonight. The hours deepened. Snores rose softly, the storm a muffled roar outside. Cynthia dozed in her chair, Lily curled in her lap. Midnight crept in on silent feet. A restless shift from the settee pulled her awake. Jax tossed, his face flushed unnaturally. Benjamin was already there. Hand to the boy's forehead. Hot. Fever's up. Panic rippled through the men. A military snap in their movements. Hospital? Someone asked. Benjamin shook his head. Roads blocked solid. Helplessness crested. Giants undone by illness. Cynthia stepped forward, voice calm. I can help. Hope surged in their eyes. You know fevers. She nodded. Father mended hands on the trail. Taught me well. She fetched a basin, cool water, clean cloths. We fight the infection. Hydrate, cool him down. She began, dipping cloths, laying them across Jax's brow, coaxing sips of herbal tea between compresses. The riders formed a loose circle around the settee, their faces etched with worry under the lantern light. Jax's breath came in shallow rasps, his skin burning beneath Cynthia's palm. "No hospital tonight," Benjamin muttered, confirming what they all knew. The storm had buried every road under feet of snow. Cynthia's voice cut through the tension, steady as the herbs she measured into a cup. "We do this here. Basin of cool water, fresh cloths, willow bark tea for the fever, and we watch him close." She moved with the calm certainty her father had drilled into her on long cattle drives, when a hand's infection could mean losing the whole crew. She filled the basin from the stove's dwindling reservoir, soaked a cloth, and laid it across Jax's forehead. He flinched, murmuring incoherently. Hours bled away in a rhythm of compressed changes and sips of tea. Cynthia monitored his pulse at the wrist, counted breaths, adjusted blankets to keep him warm but not overheated. The riders took turns fetching water, stoking the stove, holding the lantern steady. Jax slipped in and out of delirium, his voice cracking on a single word that stilled every man in the room. "Mama." Cynthia's hand tightened around his, her own memories surging. Lily's first fever, Elijah's absence, the night she had fought alone. She leaned close, voice soft but firm. "I'm here, son. Rest easy." The word slipped out naturally, and no one questioned it. Benjamin stood watch at the foot of the settee, arms folded, eyes never leaving Cynthia's hands. Each precise motion deepened the respect in his gaze. He had led men through firefights, but this quiet battle against fever held a different kind of valor. The others watched in silent awe, their earlier exhaustion forgotten. Silas whispered to a younger rider, "She's got medic in her blood, same as Cook." Cynthia caught the words, offered a tired half-smile, and kept working. Compressed tea pulse repeat. The night stretched thin, the storm's howl fading to a distant moan. Dawn crept in pale and gray, filtering through frost-laced windows. Jax's skin cooled beneath the latest cloth. His breathing evened. Cynthia pressed 2 fingers to his neck, held them there, then exhaled a breath she had not realized she was holding. "Fever's broken." Relief rippled through the circle like a wave. Benjamin's shoulders sagged, the lines around his eyes softening. "Lifesaver," he said, voice rough with gratitude. Jax stirred, eyes focusing on Cynthia's face. "Thank you, ma'am." She smoothed his hair back, the gesture maternal. "You saved me too," she replied. "Gave me purpose tonight." The riders exchanged looks. They understood mutual rescue. Outside, the wind had eased to a whisper, snow still falling but lighter now, the worst of the blizzard spent. Benjamin stepped to the window, peering through a cleared circle. "Roads'll be days clearing, but we can move come full light." The riders began packing gear with quiet efficiency, rolling blankets, portioning leftover stew into tins for the road. Cynthia felt a strange sadness settle in her chest. The house had been full of life for one night. Soon it would echo again. Benjamin approached as she wiped the basin clean. "Your aid, it honors debts we can't repay in kind. But pursue that hearth of yours. Hearts will find the way." His words carried weight, a promise wrapped in encouragement. Goodbyes unfolded slowly, each rider pausing to clasp Cynthia's hand or offer a gruff thanks. Lily, awake and brighter, clung to Silas's leg. "Come back, Grandpa Silas." He knelt, hugging her tight. "Soon as roads allow, lass. Got a fort to finish." Tears glistened in the old man's eyes. Benjamin was last. He pressed a thick envelope into Cynthia's palm. "Compensation. Healer's pay." She started to protest. He shook his head. "You will. For the girl, for the hearth." The 15 filed out into the pale morning, bikes rumbling to life one by one, then vanishing into the mist that clung to the snow-blanketed plains. Cynthia stood at the door until the last tail-light faded, the envelope heavy in her hand. The house fell tomb-like in their absence. Silence pressed where voices had been, cold seeping back despite the stove's lingering warmth. Cynthia opened the envelope. 6 crisp $100 bills and a note in bold script. Asterisk for the hearth mom who showed family. Brotherhood eternal. Asterisk, the words blurred through sudden tears. She paid the overdue stove repair, bought propane, replaced worn gear. Morgan's hearth reopened with a fresh chalkboard sign, the scent of stew once again rising. But the road stayed empty. 0 patrons crossed the threshold, food spoiled in the pots, and the money dwindled faster than hope. 3 days later, Lily's sniffles returned, a fever brewing behind her eyes. Cynthia faced the choice. Rent or medicine. Child 1. She bundled Lily against the chill, the envelope's last bills tucked in her pocket, and set out on foot toward Harlan's spread. The snow-crusted path stretched endless, each step a reminder of the emptiness the riders had briefly filled. Cynthia's boots crunched through the crusted snow, each step a labor that sent pain shooting up her elbow. The envelope's last bills weighed light in her pocket, but Lily weighed heavier in her arms, fever-hot and limp against her chest. Harlan's spread loomed ahead, pristine fences cutting sharp lines through the white. Smoke curled from his chimney, a promise of warmth she could not claim. She shifted Lily higher, knocked with her good arm. The door cracked open, Harlan's face appearing, eyes narrowing at the sight of her. "What now?" "Mr. Harlan, please. Lily's burning up. Need medicine, maybe milk. I'll pay soon as I can." Her voice cracked on the plea. Harlan's sneer deepened, lips curling. "Told you before, trouble. Solo dubious. No handouts here." Cynthia swallowed pride. "Beggin'. She's feverish bad." Harlan's hand shot out, shoving her shoulder. She stumbled back, foot slipping on ice, and fell hard. Pain flared in her elbow as it struck the frozen path. Lily screamed, a thin wail that cut the cold air. "Off my land, welfare trash. Respectable folk don't need your kind." The door slammed, the sound final as a judge's gavel. Cynthia sat in the snow, tears freezing on her cheeks. Lily's cries turned to whimpers, her small hand clutching Cynthia's coat. "Hurt, Mama." "Yes, love. But we're okay." The lie tasted bitter. She hauled herself up, elbow throbbing, and started the long trudge home. The path stretched endless, wind needling through her layers. She passed Widow Ellis's cottage, its windows glowing soft yellow. A voice called from the porch. "Child, you all right? Saw that cruelty from my window. Harlan's poison always has been. Come inside, warm up." Cynthia hesitated, rejection still raw, but Lily's heat against her neck decided. "No bother." Ellis waved her in. "Help ain't bother. Name's Ellis. Move now before you freeze solid." The cottage door opened to a rush of warmth, bread scent wrapping around them like a quilt. Ellis bustled, taking Lily gently. "Let's see the little one." She examined with expert hands, fingers gentle on the child's brow, listening to the cough. "Mild, thank goodness. Fever's high but not dangerous yet. Medicine, milk, rest." She produced a bottle of children's fever reducer, a jug of milk, a sack of groceries. Cynthia's eyes widened. "Why?" Ellis pressed a folded envelope into her palm, $150 crisp inside, a note in careful script. Asterisk for a mom like my young self. Chin up. Asterisk, Mama always said kindness returns when you need it most. I needed once. Now you do. Hope flickered, fragile but real. Cynthia thanked her through tears, bundled Lily again, and trudged home with supplies and money that felt like manna. 3 days passed in careful recovery. Lily mended under the medicine's spell, color returning to her cheeks, cough easing to occasional. Cynthia used the funds wisely. Medicine refills, milk, oats, a new propane canister. She prepped lunch, stirring beans with the last of the riders' stew herbs, the scent filling the great room. Lily sat on her stool, stacking cans again, humming. The house felt less like a tomb, more like a hearth once more. The ground trembled first, a low vibration underfoot. Cynthia paused, spoon mid-stir. The tremble grew to a rattle, dishes clinking in the cupboard. She moved to the window, peering through cleared frost. The horizon filled with motorcycles, endless lines in perfect formation. Engines thundered, shaking snow from the eaves. Lily clapped from her perch. Big bikes! The roar peaked, then cut to unison silence as 1,500 machines parked with military precision. Benjamin led the familiar 15. Behind them stretched multitudes, leather and chrome glinting under weak sun. Neighbors emerged from houses, stunned faces peering from doorways. Benjamin dismounted, striding through the snow with purpose. Cynthia stepped onto the porch, heart pounding. He stopped at the gate, envelope thick in his gloved hand. Debts paid. Cynthia stared at the envelope Benjamin extended, its thickness promising more than paper. Snow crunched under her boots as she descended the porch steps, Lily peeking from the doorway. Benjamin's eyes held steady, the same weary gratitude from the storm night now layered with purpose. "Open it," he said gently. Her fingers trembled as she tore the seal. Stacks of bills spilled into view, enough to clear every overdue notice, the mortgage, the ranch itself. Official documents followed. Deed in her name alone, paid in full. A business plan outlined a professional hearth, commercial kitchen specs, marketing strategy. Chapters nationwide heard what you did, Benjamin explained. One mom, one night, 15 half-frozen men. Word spread through the brotherhood. Contractors ride with us. They'll renovate, build it right. Marketing's handled. Your stew goes viral. Tears blurred the numbers. Cynthia clutched the papers to her chest, the emotional weight crashing over her. "Why?" The word broke on a sob. Benjamin's voice softened. "You showed family when we were strangers at death's door. We repay family." The simplicity struck deeper than grandeur. She had opened her home out of desperation and compassion. Now compassion returned in legion form. The crowd parted as Ellis pushed through, her cottage shawl clutched tight. Her gaze locked on Jax, who stood beside Benjamin, leg braced but steady. A silver locket glinted at Jax's throat, catching sunlight. Ellis gasped, hand flying to her mouth. "That locket!" She stumbled forward, eyes wide with impossible hope. Jax touched it instinctively. "Family heirloom. Ma gave it before." Ellis's voice shook. "Fire took my boy 25 years ago. House burned, he vanished in the chaos. Inscription inside. Love never dies. Birthmark on his left shoulder, shaped like a crescent moon." Jax froze, then unclasped the locket with fumbling fingers. The words stared back, etched in faded script. He shrugged off his jacket, revealing the mark clear as day. Recognition hit like lightning. Ellis collapsed the last steps, arms outstretched. Jax caught her. 30 seconds of stunned silence before sobs racked them both. Mother and son clung in the snow, years dissolving in salt tears. Riders stood stunned, neighbors gaping from porches. Benjamin laid a hand on each shoulder. "Ellis is mother to us all now." The declaration settled, a new bond forged in miracle. Harlan approached from the edge of the crowd, hat twisted in his hands. His face, once twisted in disdain, now sagged with shame. "Cynthia." His voice cracked. "What I did, what I said. No excuse. Fear and foolishness." He glanced at Lily, then the legion of bikes. "I was wrong." Cynthia studied him, pity softening the anger. "We all carry weights, Mr. Harlan. Understanding starts somewhere." He nodded, eyes down, the apology hanging between them like a bridge half-built. Transformation ignited. Contractors dismounted, tools clanking, blueprints unrolling. The ranch buzzed with purpose. Exterior walls reinforced, interior expanded, professional kitchen installed with gleaming stoves and walk-in coolers. Painters refreshed the sign, "Morgan's Hearth. Love's ingredient." Neighbors trickled closer, offering dishes, labor, tentative smiles. Community barriers crumbled under shared awe, the miracle of reunion rippling outward. Children darted between bikes, fascinated by chrome and patches. Food tents rose, stew pots simmering, the scent drawing everyone into festival spirit. By evening the block party pulsed with life. Lanterns strung between houses, music from a rider's portable speaker, tables laden with potluck and professional samples. Bonds formed in laughter and stories, strangers becoming neighbors. News vans arrived, cameras capturing the legion, the reunion, the hearth reborn. Cynthia stood on her porch, envelope secure in her pocket, watching kindness seed a vast harvest. The block party's lanterns still swayed in the evening breeze, but the first stars pricked the Montana sky as crews worked under floodlights. Cynthia watched from the porch steps, the new deed folded safely in her apron pocket. Contractors moved with the same disciplined calm the riders had shown in her kitchen 3 nights earlier. Exterior crews reinforced the old ranch walls with fresh timber and insulated siding, their hammers ringing steady. Inside, carpenters expanded the great room into a proper dining hall, beams rising clean and strong. Plumbers installed commercial sinks. Electricians wired bright pendant lights over future tables. The professional kitchen took shape fastest. Stainless steel counters, double ovens, a walk-in cooler humming to life. Neighbors who had once hurried past now lingered, offering casseroles to fuel the workers or hauling scrap wood away. A widow from down the road brought apple pies. 2 ranch hands lent muscle to lift the new stove into place. The air smelled of sawdust, stew, and possibility. Initial wariness melted under the rhythm of labor. Children who had hidden behind mother's skirts now darted between tool belts, eyes wide at the gleaming bikes parked in neat rows. A little boy tugged Benjamin's sleeve, asking about the eagle patch. Harlan, of all people, lifted the child onto a Harley's seat for a photo. His voice gruff but kind. "Hold still, partner. That's history right there." He had spent the afternoon advocating, convincing skeptical neighbors to bring chairs, tables, anything to help. His redemption unfolded in small acts. Carrying lumber, apologizing again to Cynthia with a quiet promise to spread word about the hearth. The community healed stitch by stitch, fear giving way to shared sweat and laughter. Ellis and Jax moved through the chaos like they had always belonged. Ellis commandeered a corner of the new kitchen, sleeves rolled, teaching Jax her cornbread secrets. "Light hand with the buttermilk, son. That's the trick." Jax absorbed every word, his locket catching light as he stirred. He had already claimed assistant manager duties. Inventory lists, supplier calls, a natural ease with the riders who now called him brother. Family roles settled naturally. Ellis mothered everyone, pressing slices of pie into calloused hands. Jax organized shifts, his limp fading with purpose. Cynthia watched them side by side, mother and son reunited after a quarter-century, and felt the universe signaling loud and clear. Kindness had come home, wearing leather and carrying hope. Later, when the last nail was driven for the night, Cynthia stood alone in the expanded dining hall. The scent of fresh pine mingled with lingering stew. She traced a finger over the new counter, smooth and cool. The rider's act had been massive, but these quiet moments told the deeper story. One open door in a blizzard had rippled into this. Walls raised, hearts mended, a legacy reborn. Her father's voice whispered in the rafters. "Hold on, darlin'." She smiled, tears pricking but not falling. The hearth was no longer a desperate dream. It was real, and it belonged to more than just her. Departure prep began at dawn the next day. Riders packed gear with the same efficiency they had unpacked it. Engines warmed in the crisp air, a low chorus. Goodbyes were softer this time, less tearful, more certain. Silas knelt to Lily, pressing a tiny leather vest into her hands. "Little rider," it read across the back. "Wear it proud." Lily hugged his neck fierce. Benjamin handed Cynthia a leather-bound journal. Contacts, chapters coast to coast. You call, we ride. His grip lingered on her shoulder. Family permanently now. One by one they mounted, helmets donned, engines revving in staggered waves. The Legion rolled out, dust and snow swirling behind them, until the plains swallowed the last taillight. Tomorrow loomed. Grand opening. The street lay quiet but changed, fresh paint gleaming, new signs swinging gently. Tables waited inside, chairs aligned, menus printed with her father's stew front and center. Cynthia locked up, the key solid in her palm. She stepped onto the porch, the night air sharp with promise. Somewhere beyond the horizon, a distant rumble answered, faint but unmistakable. The riders were gone, but the promise lingered. The distant rumble faded into the night, leaving Cynthia on the porch with a key to a future she had barely dared imagine. Dawn broke crisp and gold, the new sign catching first light. Morgan's Hearth, love's ingredient. By noon, the parking lot overflowed. Cars, trucks, and a fresh line of motorcycles stretched down the road. The grand opening drew an eclectic crowd. Locals in flannel, riders in leather, families from town, even a news crew with cameras rolling. Inside, tables filled fast, laughter bouncing off fresh walls. The air carried venison stew, cornbread, spiced apples, every dish perfected under Ellis's watchful eye. Reviews poured in on phones. 5 stars, legendary flavor, must-visit frontier gem. A Food Network scout slipped Cynthia a card mid-service. We want the story. The stew. The storm. All of it. Daily life settled into a rhythm sweeter than any recipe. Mornings began with Jax and Ellis in the kitchen, flour dusting the air as cornbread baked. Jax managed inventory with easy authority, calling suppliers before the sun cleared the plains. Ellis tweaked seasonings, humming old trail songs, her presence a steady anchor. Lily greeted guests in her little rider vest, leading children to a corner table with coloring books and mini stew samples. Her smile lit the room brighter than the pendant lights. Benjamin visited every few weeks, rolling in with a small crew, always bearing toys for Lily and stories for the regulars. He claimed a corner booth, boots stretched out, watching the hearth thrive with quiet pride. Neighbor amends wove through the weeks. Harlan became a loyal customer, arriving each Friday for stew and a slice of Ellis's pie. He left generous tips and spread word to every ranch within 50 miles. Block parties turned regular, tables lining the street under string lights, potluck blending with hearth specials. Former skeptics brought desserts, swapped recipes, lingered late. The plains, once a barrier of silence, now echoed with connection. School programs bloomed from a simple idea. Cynthia offered free meals to local kids on Wednesdays, pairing bowls of stew with stories of kindness. Riders visited classrooms, sharing tales of the storm night, the reunion, the power of an open door. Children listened wide-eyed, then drew pictures of bikes and hearths to hang on the dining hall walls. One boy wrote in careful letters, "I will help someone today." The program grew, buses rolling in from farther towns, the hearth feeding bodies and hearts alike. Ripples spread nationwide. News clips went viral. The blizzard miracle, the Legion's return, the lost son found. Chapters from coast to coast sent photos. Similar acts, strangers sheltered, debts paid, hearths kindled. A diner in Idaho renamed it special after Morgan's stew. A shelter in Texas painted love's ingredient above its door. Cynthia read the messages at night, wonder rising like steam from a fresh pot. One seed, planted in fear and compassion, had grown wild across a continent. The emotional core settled deep. No more loneliness echoed in the rafters. Belonging wrapped around her certain as dawn. She moved through service with Jax's easy banter, Ellis's warm guidance, Lily's giggles, Harlan's gruff nods. The hearth was family, extended and chosen, proof that open hearts built more than walls. 6 months slipped by in a heartbeat, the plains greener, the hearth busier, the story still unfolding. 6 months slipped by in a heartbeat, the plains greener, the hearth busier, the story still unfolding. The Montana winds carried warmth now, sweeping across fields where neighbors once kept distance. The valley united in quiet, steady ways. Shared harvests, joint repairs, children biking between spreads without a second thought. Morgan's hearth stood at the center, a hub glowing with life. Critics arrived from cities, pens poised, leaving with rave reviews that filled reservation books weeks out. Television crews returned, filming segments on frontier fare and frontier hearts. Yet true success lived in the connections. Regulars who knew each other's orders, riders who dropped in like clockwork, locals who lingered after closing to swap stories over coffee. Family dynamics deepened like roots under fertile soil. Jax had become the son Cynthia never bore. His laughter filling the kitchen as he tested new herb blends. "Ma, try this sage twist," he'd say, sliding a spoon her way. Ellis ruled the baking station, her recipes now laminated on the menu. Her gentle corrections a daily ritual. Cornbread needs love, not just heat. Lily moved with confident grace in her vest, greeting guests by name, leading tours of the mural wall where kids' drawings hung. The bikers were uncles in every sense. Silas teaching her to whistle through a blade of grass, Benjamin arriving with books or small carved toys. The hearth kitchen hummed with their voices, a chorus of belonging. Lessons shared in quiet moments by the window overlooking the plains. Cynthia, Ellis, and Jax often paused there after the lunch rush, sunlight slanting through clean panes. Ellis spoke first, voice soft with memory. "Kindness cycles, child. You give, it circles back when you least expect." Jax nodded, locket glinting. "One act, Ma. That night you opened the door, changed everything." Cynthia traced the glass, watching a rider help a neighbor unload hay. "We're all one choice away from change. Open the door or keep it shut." The talks grounded them, reminders etched in every bowl served. Broader impact unfolded in headlines and quiet deeds. News of the storm, the Legion, the reunion inspired compassion nationwide. Shelters adopted open-door policies. Strangers paid tabs for struggling families. A viral challenge urged random acts with the hashtag #HearthKindness. Elijah's regret surfaced in a letter forwarded by a mutual friend. Shaky script, apologies too late, pride swallowed. Cynthia read it once, folded it away. Irrelevant now. Her world had expanded beyond old wounds. Final gratitude came on a clear night, the hearth closed, dishes done. Cynthia stepped onto the porch, night air cool and star-drenched. She spoke to the darkness, words carried on the breeze. "Thank you, Daddy, for the stew and the strength. Thank you, universe, for the storm that broke me open. Thank you, angels on wheels, for proving we're never alone." Open hearts, she knew, found kin waiting in the shadows. The legacy endured as reminder. The smallest compassion changes everything. One pot of stew, one cracked door, one night of shared warmth had proven strangers were family awaiting recognition. Morgan's hearth stood as living proof, its lights a beacon across the plains. Subscribe for more profound tales.